Hey, it's Kesha. Welcome and welcome back. We are taking our next steps in the Aquarian. I believe we're on, let's hope it's marked. That's not right. Um, hmm, hmm. I'm pretty sure it was marked. Yes, okay, it is. So let's go ahead and center down. So go ahead and close our eyes. Take a deep breath in and out. Deep breath in, picking up all the energy from your toes, through your shoulders, lift up your shoulders. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, and let it all out. One more time. All the energy from all your body, all the excess, bring it up, bring it up, bring it up, and out. Just feel yourself clearing with each breath. Just see a column of white light drop down over you, over us. And feel the white light, those particles moving in to fill in all the gaps and spaces in you. Make you complete and whole, sparkling and radiant. Clear and at peace. Present and whole. Feel the power in our coming together. Feel the love. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. All right. So we are on chapter 30. I want to just get right to it. I think, where have we been? We're still in India with the priests. So here we are. One day, as Jesus stood beside the Ganges, busy with his work, a caravan returning from the west drew near. And one, approaching Jesus, said, "We come to you just from your native land and bring unwelcome news. Your father is no more on earth, your mother grieves, and none can comfort her. She wonders whether you are still alive or not. She longs to see you once again." And Jesus bowed his head in silent thought, and then he wrote. Of what he wrote, this is the sum. My mother, noblest of womankind, a man just from my native land, has brought me word that father is no more in flesh, and that you grieve and are disconsolate. My mother, all is well for father, and is well for you. His work in this earthbound is done, and is nobly done. In all the walks of life, men cannot charge him with deceit, dishonesty, nor wrong intent. Here in this round he finished many heavy tasks, and he has gone from hence prepared to solve the problems of the round of soul. Our Father God is with him there, and as he was with him here, and there his angel guards his footsteps lest he go astray. Why should you weep? Tears cannot conquer grief. There is no power in grief to mend a broken heart. The plane of grief is idleness. The busy soul can never grieve. It has no time for grief. When grief comes trooping through the heart, just lose yourself, plunge deep in that ministry of love, and grief is not. Yours is a ministry of love, and all the world is calling out for love. Then let the past go with the past. Rise from the cares of carnal things and give your life for those who live. And if you lose your life in serving life, you will be sure to find it within the morning sun, the evening dews, in song of bird and flowers, and in the stars of night. In just a little while, your problems of this earth round will be solved. And when your sums are all worked out, it will be pleasure unalloyed for you to enter wider fields of usefulness, to solve the greater problems of the soul. Strive, then, to be content, and I will come to you some day and bring you richer gifts than gold or precious stones. I'm sure that John will care for you, supply all your needs, and I am with you all the way. Joshua. And by the hand of one, a merchant going to Jerusalem, he sent this letter on its way. The words and works of Jesus caused unrest through all the land. The common people were his friends, believed in him, and followed him in throngs. The priests and rulers were afraid of him. His very name sent terror to their hearts. He preached the brotherhood of life, the righteousness of equal rights, and taught the uselessness of priests and sacrificial rites. He shook the very sand on which the Brahmic system stood. He made the Brahmic idols seem so small and sacrifice so fraught with sin that shrines and wheels of prayer were all forgot. The priest declared that if this Hebrew boy should tarry longer in the land, a revolution would occur. The common people would rise and kill the priests and tear their temples down. And so they sent a call abroad, and priests from every province came. Benares was on fire with Brahmic zeal. Lamass, from the temple Jagannath, who knew the inner life of Jesus well, was in their midst, and heard the rantings of the priests. And he stood forth and said, "My brother priests, take heed. Be careful what you do. This is a record-making day. The world is looking on. The very life of Brahmic thought is now on trial. If we are reason blind, if prejudice be king today, if we resort to beastly force and dye our hands in blood that may, in the sight of Brahm, be innocent and pure, his vengeance may fall down on us. The very rock on which we stand may burst beneath our feet, and our beloved priesthood and our laws and shrines will go into decay." But they would not let him speak no more. The wrathful priests rushed up and beat him, spit on him, called him traitor, threw him bleeding to the street. And then confusion reigned. The priests became a mob. The sight of human blood led on to fiendish acts and called for more. The rulers, fearing war, sought Jesus, and they found him calmly teaching in the marketplace. They urged him to depart, that he might save his life, but he refused to go. And then the priests sought cause for his arrest, but he had done no crime. And then false charges were preferred, and when the soldiers went to bring him to the judgment hall, they were afraid, because the people stood in his defense. The priests were baffled, and they resolved to take his life by stealth. They found a man who was a murderer by trade and sent him out at night to slay the object of their wrath. Lamass heard about their plotting and their plans and sent a messenger to warn his friend, and Jesus hastened to depart. By night he left Benares, and with haste he journeyed to the north, and everywhere the farmers, merchants, the Sudras helped him on his way. And after many days he reached the mighty Himalayas, and in the city of Kipavastu he abode. The priests of Buddha opened wide their temple doors for him. Among the Buddhist priests was one who saw lofty wisdom in the words that Jesus spoke. It was Barata Arabo. Together, Jesus and Barata read the Jewish Psalms and Prophets, read the Vedas, the Avesta, and the wisdom of Gautama. And as they read and talked about the possibilities of man, Barata said, "Man is a marvel of the universe. He is a part of everything, for he has been a living thing on every plane of life. Time was when man was not, and then he was a bit of formless substance in the molds of time, and then a protoplast. By universal law, all things tend upward to a state of perfectness. The protoplast evolved, becoming worm, then reptile, bird, and beast, and then at last it reached the form of man. Now, man himself is mind, and mind is here to gain perfection by experience. And mind is often manifest in fleshly form, and in the form best suited to its growth. So mind may manifest as worm, or bird, or beast, or man. The time will come when everything will be evolved unto the state of perfect man. And after every man is man in perfectness, he will evolve to higher forms of life." And Jesus said, "Barata Arabo, who taught you this? That mind, which is the man, may manifest in the flesh of beast or bird or creeping thing." Barata said, "From times when man remembers not, our priests have told us so, and so we know." And Jesus said, "Enlightened Arabo, you are a mastermind and do not know that man knows not by being told? Man may believe what others say, but thus he never knows. If man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Do you remember, Arabo, when you were ape or bird or worm? Now, if you have no better proving of your plea than that the priests have told you so, you do not know, you simply guess. Regard not, then, what any man has said. Let us forget the flesh and go with mind into the land of fleshless things. Mind never does forget. And backward through the ages, masterminds can trace themselves, and thus they know. Time never was when man was not. That which begins will have an end. If man was not, the time will come when he will not exist. From God's own record book we read, the triune God breathed forth, and 7 spirits stood before his face. The Hebrews call of these 7 spirits Elohim. And these are they who, in their boundless power, created everything that is or was. The spirits of the triune God moved on the face of the boundless space, and 7 ethers were, and every ether had its form of life. These forms of life were but the thoughts of God, clothed in the substance of their ether planes. Men call these ether planes the planes of protoplast, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel, and of cherubim. These planes were all their teeming thoughts of God. These planes, with all their teeming thoughts of God, are never seen by the eyes of man in flesh. They are composed of substance far too fine for fleshy eyes to see, and still they constitute the soul of things. And with the eyes of soul, all creatures see these ether planes and all the forms of life. Because all forms of life on every plane are thoughts of God, all creatures think, and every creature is possessed of will, and in its measure has the power to choose. And in their native planes, all creatures are supplied with nourishment from the ethers of their planes. And so it was with every living thing until the will became a sluggish will. And then the ethers of the protoplast, the earth, the plant, the beast, the man began to vibrate very slow. The ethers all became more dense, and all the creatures of these planes were clothed with coarser garbs, the garbs of flesh which men can see, and thus this coarser manifest, which men call physical, appeared. And this is what is called the fall of man. But man fell not alone, for protoplast and earth and plant and beast were all included in the fall. The angels and the cherubim fell not. Their wills were ever strong, and so they held the ethers of their planes in harmony with God. Now, when the ethers reached the state of atmosphere, and all the creatures of these planes must get their food from atmosphere, the conflict came. And then that which the finite man has called survival of the best became a law. The stronger ate the bodies of the weaker manifests, and here is where the carnal law of evolution had its rise. And now man, in his utter shamelessness, strikes down and eats the beast. The beast consumes the plant thrives on the earth absorbs the protoplast, and yonder kingdom of the soul, this carnal evolution, is not known. And the great work of masterminds is to restore the heritage of man, to bring him back to his estate that he has lost, when he again will live upon the ethers of his native plane. The thoughts of God change not. The manifests of life on every plane unfold into perfection of their kind. And as the thoughts of God can never die, there is no death to any being of the 7 ethers of the 7 spirits of the triune God. And so the earth is never plant. A beast or bird or creeping thing is never man, and man is not and cannot be a beast or bird or creeping thing. The time will come when all these 7 manifests will be absorbed, and man and beast and plant and earth and protoplast will be redeemed. Barata was amazed. The wisdom of the Jewish sage was revelation unto him. Now, Vidyapati, wisest of the Indian sages, chief of the temple, Kipavastu, heard Barata speak to Jesus of the origin of man, and heard the answer of the Hebrew prophet, and said, You priests of Kapavastu, hear me speak. We stand today upon a great crest of time. 6 times ago, a master soul was born who gave a glory light to man, and now a master sage stands here in the temple Kapavastu. This Hebrew prophet is the risen star of wisdom deified. He brings to us a knowledge of the secret things of God, and all the world will hear his words, will heed his words, and will glorify his name. You priests of Kapavastu, stay. Be still and listen when he speaks. He is the living oracle of God. And all the priests gave thanks and praised the Buddha of enlightenment. I think we will leave it there because that is a fairly heavy little piece. So it starts with Jesus getting a message that his father has passed. And his mother is quite aggrieved. And while we might have tended to think that he would stop his teaching and stop his learning and go and comfort her, instead he writes a letter and said that there is no power in grief to mend a broken heart, and that the way through grief is to busy ourselves with the ministry of love. And as we love and serve in love, then grief is no more. I think you as being called a minister, we each have a special charge, if not more than one. But I definitely feel like mine is in the area of comforting those who are making transition, or comforting those who are watching the transition of a loved one. That's the space where I feel like I am most given to service. And one thing that I always tell people, and I practice for myself in those moments when it's come, is in the moment of your grief to cry. Cry and feel the emotion of where you are in that moment. And it doesn't matter where you are in that moment. If you are standing at the grocery store, if you are pumping your gas, it does not matter. What will people think does not matter. What matters is that you be present in the moment with those thoughts and feelings, because our tears have cleansing properties. The chemical makeup of tears is different based on the emotions surrounding them. So if you notice, when you're crying tears of happiness and joy, your tears are really light and thin, and kind of watery in consistency. And your eyes kind of glisten, right? And when you're done crying, they're actually brighter than they were before, but there's never any redness, right? Contrast that, though, to tears of grief and sadness, where it's like full on heaviness in the head, and you can't barely blow your nose, but you definitely feel the pressure and you have to. The tears have a higher salt content, and they're stinging. Your eyes are left red. They tend to be puffy. That is the chemical reaction of grief expressing. And so we do ourselves a disservice when, in the moment when those emotions have risen, to tamp them down and say, no, not now, not here. This isn't the appropriate time or place. When they rise is when they are appropriate. And it's important for you to give license to and feel that. Because what happens on the other side of that is the torrent of grief washes away, and you're left with this river of calm and peace. And all that's left is the love. And that's the space where we want to be. If we just can't get there in that moment, and we feel like we can't cry, what will happen is we will stuff it down. And it'll get held in a pocket of ourselves somewhere, somehow. And then at another moment, whether or not it be opportune, in some other way that may not even be related, it comes out again. And so rather than have to do the work twice and miss the blessing the first time when you need the love and the blessing the most, cry. Cry when you feel it. All right, so I digress just a bit, but that's just a good word. And there were so many more of them. So yeah, this is a beautiful letter that he writes to his mother. And then he resumes his teaching. He's with with Lamass, And it, of course, what he's saying touches the hearts of the people, because what he's speaking is a universal truth that has been obscured by their priests and rulers, who are now upset that their hold and power is shifting, because the people are now in awareness of their own power. And so, what do small people do when they get upset with somebody else? They try to do violence to them to shut them up in any way possible, as opposed to listening themselves and figuring out how they can bring their beliefs and thoughts into alignment with this greater teaching. Who of us hasn't had violence done to us, whether physical or emotional, when we've expressed a thought or position that is counter to what those in power might think, whether power is, parent, spouse, a job, or what have you, and then been attacked for it. So, yeah. Well, since we're just talking and we got time, that's something that happens to me fairly often. When I come into a new environment, there will be those who will be grateful, right, and glad of my presence. And then there will be those who, it just never fails, man, whatever. Who do you think you are? Why do you think you're so special kind of people? And their common complaint to me about me is that, who do I think I am? And that, they want me to believe that I am not as special as they perceive me to think of myself. The problem with that, and this has just been this way, is that they do the thing that none of us should do, which is compare ourselves to another. And when they find themselves lacking, rather than take the time to look within and grow within them that which would make them bigger, they seek to try to tear me down. This has been a recurring theme, and the best I have come up with in rising above it is recognizing it for what it is when it happens, and wish them the strength of character and patience that they can come to that lesson and discipline of themselves, and thus turn their negative attention away from me. For the rest of yous, I share this love, and, you don't have to compare yourself to anybody, least of all me. Just get on the good foot with yourself. Spend that time focused on you, which is certainly not selfish, because the better that you can be, if I be lifted up, right? So the better that you are lifting the whole. That is your major piece of service. People think that we are here to serve others, and no, we serve others by serving ourselves, by serving our higher nature, by developing our higher nature, by maintaining connection to God and letting that be revealed through the aspect of ourselves. Again, with the good word. Priests given to violence, nothing new there, but thankfully we have Lamass, and this is one time where Jesus decides to actually listen. And so he leaves Benares and goes to, further east, and now we're in the Himalayas, Tibet. And so we meet Barata Arabo, who thinks that we reincarnate as worms and birds and other such species. And Jesus says, no, not exactly. We remain within our plane. And this is, the story. So he mentions the book of God's own record book. That is the Akashic records, where all knowledge and experience is stored, right? And talks about the fall of man from the perspective of the triune God breathed forth. We have the Elohim, the seven spirits of the Elohim. And so triune God and the Elohim breathed in their boundless power, created every living thing that was. And these spirits moved across the boundless form and gathered divine substance. And those forms were the form of life was then clothed at the thoughts of God. And I love that, right? The thoughts of God were now clothed with substance. And they became the 7 planes. So we had the ether planes of protoplast, earth, plant, beast, man, angel, and cherubim. And there came a time when will became sluggish. So when we were each formed, the planes, there was nourishment in the planes, in that plane for us. We were fed of our own existence. So yeah, they were fed the ethers of their own plane. And then their will got sluggish, right? And as they became more and more dense, then they needed coarser meat suits to clothe themselves. And then the denser it became, it became physical, which is the crystallization of thoughts formed, right? Like if we seed a thought, it is the nucleus, and then as we send more like thoughts around it, it becomes this crystalline thing, and the more energy we give it, then it begins to precipitate down into the physical. Well, we can use that to our benefit when we're looking to manifest something positive, right? But also we're constantly manifesting. So if the seed thought is negative and then we constantly send worry and doubt towards it, then what precipitates out and becomes so dense ultimately is the revelation in the flesh. Be that a negative incident that confirms the negative thought that you were having, which again shows you that prayer is always answered, whether that prayer is given in love or out of fear. Or maybe it precipitates out as disease. Worry sent, that pit of the stomach leads to an ulcer. That is how disease comes to us. It comes to us from the ethers. It comes to us from the thoughts held that are constantly fed and then precipitated down into physical form as they become more dense. So we have this fall of man where each plane began to feed on the plane below. And, I wrote this down, or I made notes about this, and I've read this a couple of times, and so it's in different colors. But it's like, and now man in his utter shamelessness strikes down and eats the beast, and the beast consumes the plant, and the plant thrives on the earth, and the earth absorbs the protoplast. And of course, the only thing I could write was, ooh, nasty. Like, no, we don't want to be doing that, right? We were happily existing as little, balls of energy in our plane of man, being fed the nourishment of our ether. And then we decided, no, we need to eat flesh. Now, this isn't to be a diatribe against eating flesh and being carnivorous. Because we were actually at that time, we were drawing the breath of life from the ethers, right? The air, the substance around us was the substance that fed us. We ourselves were made of divine substance. And so, there is a fall in consciousness that allows you to eat the beast, that ate the plant, that ate the protoplast. So square that with your feelings about eating meat, I guess. I don't know. Everybody has their own thing. Personally, at the moment, I'm a little more plant-based, at least trying to be, but it's not because, well, actually, yes, sometimes, especially with chicken. And no, I truly digress. I'm so sorry. But anyway, we're here. With chicken, sometimes I feel like, oh my God, that's flesh. And I'm not going to eat flesh, but I will still eat meat sometimes. So, but this was the discussion of the fall of man. And though who didn't fall, the angels and the cherubim, they maintained their connection with God, and they maintained being fed of the ethers, did not give in to sluggish will, and so were able to maintain in their higher space. It talks about the survival of the fittest after the fall of man. And now our great work, right? Our great work is to maintain or reestablish our connection with God, reestablish our connection with being fed of the ethers, which is the point of meditation. And remember our perfectedness, right? So as we take each step in releasing a bound or a bind of physical, carnal existence, we can ascend that much higher, which is the point. Perfected man connected with God. So I think that concludes our reading and teaching. We've had quite a bit today. So yeah, why don't you all go out and be the living oracle? Be you the living oracle of God. That is your charge for the week. I will see you next. Have a good one. Love you. Bye.